Toxicity, between the sacred silence and the chaos. The city pulsed like a living beast, alive with the roar of engines, the flashing of neon lights, and the restless shuffle of its inhabitants. It was an ecosystem of chaos, where the air itself felt heavy with tension. Somewhere between the towering skyscrapers and shadowy alleys, Malik trudged through the streets. He carried a worn messenger bag on one shoulder, a physical burden that seemed to mirror the weight in his chest. Malik wasn't special, at least not in the way the world measured value. He had no wealth, no clout, no titles. He worked for a faceless corporation, sorting through meaningless data while his soul atrophied. Each day, he felt the grind of a system that demanded everything but gave nothing in return. The glossy billboards screamed promises of happiness, luxury watches, sleek cars, designer clothes. But to Malik, they were reminders of what he could never afford. The system thrived on the illusion of control, Malik thought. You were free to chase your desires, but only within the carefully constructed boundaries of the machine. And if you ever got too close to the edges, the system would pull you back, tighter than before. He crossed a bustling intersection, nearly getting clipped by an autonomous delivery vehicle that didn't bother to slow down. What do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Malik muttered under his breath, an echo of something he'd read once. The irony wasn't lost on him. The corporations claimed to bring order to the chaos, but in reality, they were the ones feeding it, building it piece by piece. That night, Malik lay on his threadbare mattress in his dimly lit apartment. The room was cluttered with things he didn't even care about. Cheap gadgets, outdated tech, and promotional swag he'd picked up over the years. The walls were thin, and he could hear the muffled arguments of his neighbors, the buzz of a faulty fluorescent light in the hallway. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, a constant reminder of the instability outside. Malik stared at the cracked ceiling, unable to sleep. He felt trapped, not just in his apartment, but in his own mind. His thoughts were a jumble of frustration and yearning, a chaotic whirlwind of questions. Why was the world like this? Why did people chase things that didn't matter while ignoring what truly did? Somewhere, between the sacred silence and sleep, Malik felt the stirrings of clarity. In the quiet moments, he glimpsed something beyond the noise of daily life, a truth, elusive yet profound. He thought of a line he'd once read, "When I became the sun, I shone life into the man's hearts." What did it mean to become the sun? To awaken others? Malik didn't know, but the idea stayed with him. The next day, Malik found himself wandering aimlessly through the city after work. His feet carried him to the industrial district, where the buildings were grimy, the air thick with smoke and fumes. Factories churned out products endlessly. Plastic goods, disposable tech, things meant to break so people would keep buying more. As he walked, he spotted a group of workers huddled in an alley. They were arguing with a foreman, their voices sharp and angry. Malik slowed his pace, listening from the shadows. The workers were demanding fair pay, better hours, humane treatment. The foreman, red-faced and sneering, dismissed them with a wave of his hand. "This is how it is. You don't like it? There's the door." The foreman's words ignited something in Malik, a spark that had been smoldering for years. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. "How much longer will you let them feed on your lives?" The workers turned to him, surprised. Malik felt their eyes on him, but he didn't stop. "Every hour you give them is another hour they use to build this machine. They profit from your misery. And for what? More stuff no one needs." One of the workers, a woman with grease-streaked hands and tired eyes, spoke up. "What choice do we have? We've got families to feed." Malik nodded. "I know. They've made it so you think there's no other way. But that's the lie. They want you to believe you're powerless so they can stay in control." The foreman glared at Malik, his voice venomous. "Who are you to come here and stir up trouble?" Malik met his gaze. "I'm no one. Just a man who's tired of seeing the world rot from the inside out." The foreman scoffed and walked away. But Malik stayed with the workers, talking late into the night. He shared his frustrations, his questions, and they shared theirs. For the first time, Malik felt a sense of connection, a break in the isolation that had suffocated him for so long. In the weeks that followed, Malik became a fixture in the industrial district. He listened to the workers, learning their stories and their struggles. He began organizing small gatherings, places where people could speak freely, without fear of judgment or reprisal. Together they talked about what they wanted, a world where people mattered more than profits, where lives weren't reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. The gatherings grew, spilling into the streets. Malik's voice carried through the city, and others began to listen. Some scoffed, dismissing him as a dreamer. But others felt the stirrings of something they hadn't known in years: hope. One night, as Malik stood before a crowd, he felt the weight of their expectations. He wasn't a leader or a prophet. He was just a man, struggling like everyone else. But in their eyes, he saw the power of collective strength, the potential to reshape the world. He took a deep breath. Somewhere between the sacred silence and the chaos, there's a moment of truth, a moment where we decide what kind of world we want to live in. They've controlled us for too long, feeding us lies, making us think we're small. But together, we're unstoppable. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices a wave of defiance that echoed through the city. As the movement grew, so did the resistance. The corporations and governments saw Malik as a threat, branding him an agitator, a disruptor. But he didn't stop. He knew the stakes were too high. The world couldn't continue on its toxic path, driven by greed and materialism. Change was possible, but only if people were willing to fight for it. And so, Malik kept going, shining light into the darkness, igniting hearts with the hope of something better. Somewhere, between the sacred silence and sleep, the world began to wake up. In a world drowning in chaos, even a single voice can spark a revolution.